If you feel like you should be eating better, but every time you try, you feel confused, overwhelmed, and you fall off track, you've come to the right place. The problem isn't willpower, it's not discipline, it's the sheer amount of conflicting advice you're surrounded by. I'm Nick Brax, and this is Move Your Mind, where we help you change your life by changing your mind. This episode will help you change your life by cutting through the noise around food, so you can finally make progress without relying on willpower or waiting for the perfect diet. Where would someone begin if they are overwhelmed by all of the advice? Because it can be really confusing with so much information out there, so many different diets, so many different trends, different studies coming out all the time, things we should do, shouldn't do. Things pop up on social media, you Google something, there's articles everywhere. What would be the general advice you'd give to people on nutrition if they're just looking to lose a bit of weight, eat healthier, but they don't want to do anything drastic and they just want to make some small changes to their diet that's going to make a big difference? Do you have more protein? Do you lower the calories? What do you look at? Should you be tracking what you're eating all day, every day?
Small changes. I think the best first thing to start with is eliminating simple sugar. So if you're somebody that consumes soda, start there and just stop drinking soda. Or if you're somebody that has these huge venti Starbucks latte with the whipped cream and all the things, just starting with a lot of those simple sugars that are just easy calories to get rid of that impact our cravings and can increase our fat over time. So I would start there with simple sugar, followed by just processed foods in general. So trying to move towards more whole foods, plant foods, as opposed to processed things that we typically get like in the freezer section or in the middle aisles of the grocery store that are kind of combination foods or crackers or kind of junk snacks. So, if you're not doing any other changes, I think start there and you'll see drastic improvements.
And I like that as a first bit of simple advice rather than try and work out all these things you should do and add and change your diet, change what you're shopping for. And, it can feel complicated very quickly. It can be as simple as before you do anything, don't actually add anything, remove something, just remove one thing. Like you're saying there, look at what that high sugar item is that you're having, or, an item that's not offering any nutritional value and it's bad for you, and remove that as a first step. And you'll probably already see a big change just from that one thing.
No, absolutely. I think it's best to not try to change everything all at once. Pick 1-2 things, work on that for a month, and then we can move into adding something else. Otherwise you get overwhelmed. And I think it's also, Nick, about progress and not perfection. I tell my own patients that all the time. We're not going to be perfect every single day, and that's okay, but just continuing to make good habits, and if you slip up, then the next day make it better, and just don't let it downward spiral, but just work on making progress. So if that's that one sugary afternoon drink, maybe you have them all throughout the day, but maybe let's get rid of one and then move on.
One of the key things that come up, and it's part of the work you do, is fasting. I've had so many people, so many of our listeners, asking questions, people that I work with through Move Your Mind, through the coaching side of it, asking about fasting. In general, is fasting something that's good for you, and is that scientifically shown?
It is scientifically shown. And before I dive into that, I want to clarify a little bit about fasting, because sometimes that can even be confusing alone. There's intermittent fasting, I think, is what most people are familiar with. And when I say intermittent fasting, I think of something less than 48 hours. Maybe you're fasting 18 hours in the day or 14 hours in the day. And then you eat within a 10-hour window or an 8-hour window. And that's intermittent fasting. And some people even do that 2 days a week. They may eat significantly less calories, and the other 5 days a week they eat normally. And there are some health benefits to that, some metabolic benefits, weight loss benefits, but prolonged fasting, something greater than 48 hours, is what I consider an extended period of time where your body can get into something really special called autophagy. Auto meaning self, phagy meaning eating. And that's our body's own ability to recycle. So that's a different type of fasting. You get into a totally different mechanisms and you are have so many more benefits. So your cells get to recycle and rejuvenate. There's insulin resistance that's improved. There's reduction in inflammation. So there's a whole host of other benefits that you tap into when you're doing a prolonged fast.
And there's a lot of science behind that, you're saying, showing the benefits of the prolonged
So,
fast.
yes, so many years, decades of research. In fact, our founder, Dr. Walter Longo, who's a professor at the University of Southern California, he lives there part of the time and in Milan. When he was researching the benefits of fasting, it really started out looking at a population of people that from an outward appearance didn't seem to be protected from disease because they were more obese. You wouldn't think that they would have been protected from cardiovascular disease or heart disease. But what he found is they had a deficiency in something called IGF-1, insulin growth factor, and found that that was linked to aging. And one of the ways that we can get into autophagy is by not triggering different nutrient sensing pathways. And that's one of them. IGF-1, mTOR, PKA, all these new kind of names you may or may not have heard of. But when we don't trigger those nutrient sensing pathways, that's where we have this cellular turnover, rejuvenation, and the decreased inflammation. That's really important to improve our overall longevity.
Are there similar benefits to the common ones you hear about intermittent fasting, like you're saying, where it might be a 16-hour window, I guess, where you don't eat every day, that kind of thing, 5-2 diet, those, different diets? Do you still get similar sort of benefits out of those kinds of fasting that we hear about a lot?
You do get benefits, but not the cellular changes, not the bio-age reduction and things like that you do from prolonged fasting. So previously, prior to the new technology of the fasting mimicking diet, you could only get that with water fasting. Probably many of our ancestors, it just happened naturally, whether there was famine or different things going on, lack of access to food. But in our day and age, we can DoorDash anything. We probably sip on beverages too much all day long with sugar. We have access to all kinds of food. So we don't give our bodies the ability to do something that they innately know how to do, like a body's protective mechanism. We don't allow it to do. So because water fasting, and Nick, I don't know if you have done it before. I am not strong enough to do more than 40 hours of water fasting. It's challenging. There's not to mention the hunger, but there are safety concerns like gallstones and dehydration, muscle loss, low blood sugar, low blood pressure, that this kind of need for technology in that space. And that's why the fasting mimicking diet was created. So it's essentially the benefits of a prolonged fast, but you get 5 days of plant-based nourishment and your body
Oh,
recognize that you're eating. It's all about this kind of specific mechanism to allow you those benefits.
so you're not completely going cold turkey. Can you tell me exactly what you are actually having in that period?
Yes, absolutely. So as I mentioned, it's plant-based, gluten-free, dairy-free, but each day you are given this really well-organized box with 5 days inside. And on day one, which is really a transition day, so you go from burning glucose as your main source of fuel to burning fat on days 2, and then we'll talk more beyond days 2. But you get 2 soups during that day. You get honey nut bars that are kind of like a granola type of bar. There are olives, real olives. There's olive oil. There's almond kale crackers. There's herbal teas. There's even a little chocolate crisp. And we structure it like your typical meals that you eat. There's a breakfast, a lunch, a dinner, and a snack. So you really don't feel like you're without. It's a decent amount of calories. I would say around 1,100 or so, but it doesn't trigger these nutrient sensing pathways. So it's just enough nutrition. And then days 2 and beyond, you get into this fat burning mode. We do get to some ketosis, although that's not the point of the 5-day fast. It's really all about autophagy. And that begins on day 3. And then day 4 and 5, the cellular rejuvenation and renewal. So each of those days, you continue to get the soups and bars and olives. It just gets to be a little bit less after day 1. So you move from transitioning into days 2 through 5, and that's really where that autophagy begins.
Interesting, yeah, because that's what I was going to ask. I thought there would probably be a lot of people who would just not be able to handle, and it might be dangerous, to be going for a long period without eating. So that makes more sense to do it in that way.
Yes, and it's very precise. A lot of people think it's about calorie restriction, but it's not. It's about very specific micronutrients. It's more intentional nutrition just to give you exactly what you need, but not too much. So your body's kind of flying under the radar, so to speak, so that it can go into this cleanup mode. But we cap it. We cap it at 5 days. And the reason that happens is because fasting is a stress on the body. But exercise is a stress on the body. A lot of things we do that we think of as generally healthy or stress, but we want to then fuel with good foods. We use cycles of the prolonged fasting coupled with good nutrition, more of kind of Mediterranean style nutrition. And of course, just overall good habits, strength training, movement, the importance of sleep and stress.
If you're listening to this and you want to make a change in your life, but you don't know where to begin, I've created a free Move Your Mind masterclass that walks you through how to build sustainable habits and make change that really sticks. And you'll also get access to a free weekly newsletter where I post practical tools and stories that I don't share anywhere else. To watch the free masterclass, head to go.nickbrax.com/moveyourmind. That's go.nickbrax.com/moveyourmind. You can also find the link in the show notes. And how often would you be recommending doing that form of fasting?
Sure. I think it varies based on the individual, but if you're somebody that's generally healthy, I would say 3 or 4 times a year. In fact, that's about what I do, about 4 times a year. But if you have something specific that you are working on, a specific condition, let's say maybe some metabolic health issues, like in our metabolic health program, we have members that maybe they have pre-diabetes or maybe just obesity and they're looking to lose weight, or maybe they have high blood pressure. For those members, I would say probably 4 cycles of fasting. So a 5-day period each month for about 4 to 6 months to help improve those biomarkers. So it's just a 5-day period each month.
And then would you be recommending to people outside of that to be doing things like intermittent fasting? Because I feel like that is something that people find easy to apply
Yeah,
to their day-to-day life. You'd recommend it?
I do. What I typically recommend is more of what I call a circadian fast. So it's
Mm.
fasting in a 12-hour window each day. So maybe for you, Nick, maybe you eat between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. and that's it. And if you think about it, that's a pretty generous amount of time, having breakfast at 7, maybe having lunch at 12, dinner at 6, so you're done by 7. It seems pretty typical, but a lot of people tend to kind of back end, they don't
Mm.
eat as much in the beginning of the day and then they kind of consume all their calories in the latter half of the day. And then they go to bed and they're just full and they're not using those calories as much. It's better to kind of spread things out and maybe even front load a little bit more and with a little less.
Can it still work if you were eating the exact same amount of calories, but in a window between you didn't start till 12 in the day and you're eating up until midnight? Because I know so many people, like you're saying, end up snacking at night time and eating later in the day, and it's a hard habit to break. So would you still get the same benefit if you're eating the exact same amount of calories in a 12-hour window, but in that second half of the day, and then just, you don't eat, yeah, until midday every day?
I think it depends on when your activity is. If you're just not really moving much in the latter half of the day and that's when you're consuming most calories, you're not burning as much calories. But if you're somebody, as you say, if you're eating at noon and then finishing your meals at midnight, so you're still up for a little bit longer, then maybe you are. Maybe everything's just shifted for you. But if you're waking up, let's say 6 or 7 a.m., and then not having anything until 12, and that's essentially when you're kind of breaking your nightly fast, and then you're just kind of consuming all those calories. And then, you're just pretty, let's say, sedentary the rest of the day. Might not have the exact same benefits as you would if you kind of were up and getting going and moving and then just more metabolically active.
Yeah, it makes sense. And so ideally, you don't want to be doing that, but it would be a better option than eating all day long and snacking at night time as well and overdoing the calories.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Totally agree with that.
How big of an issue is obesity and diabetes in especially the US, but globally?
But it's such a big issue and it's growing. It's really scary. I heard a statistic just last fall that 93% of Americans are metabolically unhealthy. So that means that only 6% are metabolically healthy. So I think there's a lot of work to be done, a lot of people that can see impact from simple change, but it's something that we need to try to fix, to correct somehow.
Wow. And why is it so bad?
I think it's this, foods in general. There's a lot of convenience foods. For busy people, we gravitate towards those. I think a lot of times what's accessible is not healthy. And we just want things out of convenience or instant, kind of instant gratification mind of, I'm going to DoorDash this Chinese meal, but it may not have many vegetables at all. It may be mostly rice and have some beef in it or chicken. I think it's a combination of things that are quick and easy and a lack of education and nutrition and even practical things like cooking, a lack of education in cooking too. How do I make a wholesome meal for ourselves? So I think there's so many different reasons why we're at this state of health across the globe. But I would say starting there, it's things that are quick. It's a lack of knowing how to prepare things that are healthy or what those might even be. And then just portion control too. Those are three huge, huge factors that contribute to obesity and metabolic disease.
And surely income would be a big part as well, because I mean, I've noticed this more in the US than anywhere. You can go into, a fast food place and get a burger for like $1 or $2. Soft drink, they've got these huge, gigantic like servings of it.
Hmm.
And if you're if you're struggling financially, the cheaper option is to eat crap.
It
So
is.
it's almost like you're putting these people on a treadmill where you can't get off it because you're stuck in this cycle.
Yes, exactly. Well, that's where I also think the lack of maybe education on some foods that are healthy, that are not expensive, but just knowing what they are. That's why it's really great to be able to work with a dietitian that can give you some guidance there.
Yeah. And again, on the financial side, a lot of people who need that can't afford the dietitian. So they need to then know where to go to find that free information, online or wherever else you're going to find it.
Yes. Do you see the same statistics in Australia around obesity and metabolic disease?
Yeah, I think it's not as bad as America, but it's not good. I think Australia has a pretty, I think we're up there with one, countries that in terms of obesity and diabetes and whatever else. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely not a good thing.
Yes, it's scary. It's something that will continue to have an impact on our overall health as a population too, and on our children. And so I definitely think we need to be proactive now.
Yeah, and it's sad, it's like, I guess we live in a world now where everything's so accessible and convenient that we don't really eat just to as fuel. It's eating just for convenience, enjoyment, stress, whatever it is. I mean, another question, mental health issues. Like, how connected is your mental health with what you eat? How more likely are you to eat bad stuff if you're suffering from depression, anxiety, all that kind of stuff?
Absolutely. I think so many people use food as a coping mechanism and rather than nourishment, exactly what you just said. And it can lead to a lot of issues and our health, our relationship with food, stress, sleep, our ability to regulate emotions and things.
Yeah, massively, massively. And what about the gut brain axis? I've heard a lot of people talking about the connection between your gut health and your mental health.
Yes, your mental health and your immunity too. Our gut health really is our kind of powerhouse for so many things. I mean, when we overindulge in sugar, we trigger different, hormones in our body and things start to not be able to work properly. So it's just this kind of cascading impact on our overall health if we don't tighten up and make some good good choices. But it's needing, I think the support piece is really important to have somebody to give you personalized, nutrition advice and exercise advice. I think that's really, really helpful. That's one reason why I think being in a program structure, working with a dietitian, or being even in programs like we have in our company where you can learn about all of what I like to call lifestyle medicine, and then couple that with a tool, or fasting mimicking. I like to refer to it kind of as an interventional tool that we know drives outcomes, but using it coupled with just overall healthy lifestyle is so important to sustain health, to improve not just longevity. I know a lot of people are looking for that, but what I prefer is improving your health span, so being able to live healthy for as long as you can.
Yeah, and you're probably going to get the longevity if you're improving that health span anyway.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. So it's important to listen to our bodies. One thing I wanted to mention as you were talking about gut health, that I didn't mention earlier with the fasting mimicking diet, our research, as I mentioned, is very precise, decades of research, NIH funding, but we also have a ton of clinical trials. There's over 42 clinical trials and other areas besides metabolic health and diabetes. I know I work in that specifically, but we have a lot of studies in neurodegenerative disease and autoimmune disease, and even in cancer, where there's positive impacts from doing a prolonged fast with the fasting mimicking diet. It's amazing all the
Mm.
benefits that I see in my own patient population, from improving fatty liver, which is on the rise around the globe, um, to things like improving your skin texture,
Mm.
or improving your sense of smell, or improving your gut health, improving your insulin resistance. And it's not with a pharmacological drug, it's with food. So really, truly, kind of food is medicine, is what a fasting mimicking diet is and what it does for our body. It has this kind of pleiotropic effect on everything. There's slides showing skin, and you may think, gosh, how does that impact skin? But there's improved hydration in the cell. So the skin texture is better, overall healthier. So there's so many different things that happen because we can't pinpoint just one area of the body. It's all of the cells in our
Mm.
body that get this kind of cellular cleanup and renewal.
Yeah. What about water? Do most people drink enough water, and how much water should we be drinking each day?
Yes, that's a great question. That can really vary individual to individual, but as a general guide, I think around 64 ounces of water is really important for overall hydration, just in your day-to-day diet. More so if you're out and exercising a lot or sweating a lot, maybe more so if you're somebody that gets into a sauna and sweats a lot, so it depends on things that are going on in your body and your activity level. But as a general guide, I would say somewhere between 48 and 64 ounces is a minimum.
Obviously, we know we need to drink water, but most of us don't drink enough.
Right. Right. I
It's
even
crazy.
for myself, especially when it's cold outside, as you and I were talking earlier, I don't always feel the thirst in the same way as
Same with me.
outside. So I have to
I
be
I have
intentional.
I have this on me, but like you're saying, when it's cold, you just don't want to. Like it's hard to get yourself to do it.
Yes. I was talking to one of my patients last week, and I was telling her, I said, I'm better in the winter time with just some warm water, maybe even a little squeeze of lemon, just that I'll drink that because it's soothing. But yes, if it's a cold water and it's cold outside, I have to make myself drink it. So
Yeah, that makes sense. What are the core foods we should be eating daily? Like how many servings of vegetables, fruit, grains, protein? Are there core things? Like if anyone's listening to this and they're just wanting to know what are just the bare basics that I should be eating if I wanted to try and just find a simple way to improve my diet, what are the fundamentals that we should be trying to consume?
sure. And that's a great question. I even hate using the term diet. I don't like that
Mm.
word. I really like just good nourishment, more plant-based food. So if there are ways that you can get more vegetables in your day to day, more non-starchy vegetables, anything with color. greens
Mm.
and peppers and squash and zucchini and onions, eggplant, mushrooms, anything like that with fiber, color, a lot of high micronutrient content. That's important. Getting more foods that have plant-based proteins like beans or lentils or quinoa, which is a grain, but it's a higher protein grain. So things that are less processed, as I mentioned earlier, these are important parts of our diet. We encourage fish. So especially low mercury fish like salmon, mackerel, sardines, anchovies, those are all really good sources of protein, but also good fat. And that's the next thing I was going to move into. It's good to have some fat in our diet. For years, so many people were afraid of that. But if you can have avocado or nuts, cooking with olive oil or eating olives or cooking with avocado oil, those are really good. We need some fat in our diet to help absorb some of the vitamins that we consume in vegetables. So those are all really healthy components that I would try to get into your diet and balance. So what I mean by that is, try to have a fruit or vegetable with breakfast. Try to have at least a vegetable with your lunch and one or two servings maybe at dinner so that you can have about 4 to 5 servings of fruits or vegetables per day. I think that's oftentimes one of the best ways to get enough nutrients, enough fiber in our diet is to try to have at least a fruit or vegetable at each meal and at least at one of your snacks too. So,
Yeah.
and then, maybe limiting some of your red meat. We don't have to get rid of it completely, but just trying to avoid too much saturated fat. And of course, we promote more plant-based proteins, but if you have some chicken, some simple things like taking the skin off, not frying it, eating it baked or roasted, some of those types of healthier cooking techniques are really important. And then the hydration. So I think those are
Yeah.
really key to overall improving your nutritional health.
And what are some examples of processed foods that people should avoid?
Yes. Things like crackers, cookies, kind of simple things like that. There's a lot of processed vegan foods, things that we assume are healthy because they say vegan, or maybe they say gluten free, but then they're chock full of all types of ingredients that are there to help preserve them, to help give flavor when maybe it's been stripped away of some of that flavor as it's been processed. Things that have multiple ingredients. If you think about it, when you go to the grocery store and you're in the produce section, you pick up an apple, what's the ingredients? It's just an apple. Or even say with the fish, it's just the fish. So we want things that are whole foods, or if you're getting breads, a lot of times fresh bread from the bakery, it doesn't have as many preservatives. And so that would be a better choice for you to consume too than something that's in the shelf that has 1,000 different ingredients that you can hardly pronounce. A lot of foods in the frozen section have multiple ingredients in them that keep them shelf stable. So I would sticking to the outsides of your local market, your grocery market is ideal for your health.
It makes a lot of sense. And yeah, and it's stuff we don't think about most of the time. We'll go into a supermarket and just be grabbing stuff off the shelves, not really thinking about whether it's healthy for us or not. So I think it's so good to be aware of that stuff. And a question that came to mind for me as we're talking about that is if you have done damage to yourself by eating just a horrible diet over a long period of time, by doing the right things, can you undo that, like permanently reverse it? And is there like a time frame or an age when it gets harder to reverse that? What's your understanding of that?
Sure. I don't know if I know a specific age.
Mm,
It probably varies with a lot of different factors, genetics and so many different things. But our bodies are pretty resilient. So I see people reverse things like diabetes and metabolic disease all the time. And when I say reverse, I mean maybe somebody has been on medication for diabetes for 3, 5, 10 years, and they're able to come off of it and off of the medication and improve their biomarkers so they're not even in those ranges anymore. So I think it can be done. It's mindset, it's readiness to change, it's working with somebody who can help give you those tools and that's really what the fasting mimicking diet does. Is it's not band-aid health where we're just treating symptoms. but it's digging deeper and treating some of the root causes of many diseases that are rooted in lifestyle factors and that are a complication of inflammation or of insulin resistance and things. So I think we can have a huge impact, a positive impact on our overall health and reversing some diseases if we just get back to the basics.
Yeah. And I guess there's just no better time than right now to make these changes, like, like you're saying. So regardless of what the situation is, the sooner you can make a change, the better.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no better time than today to do that. And it's interesting sometimes when I talk to people about when they do the fast, as I mentioned, there's nourishment every single day. So it's not like you're without. But I think what's really cool is a lot of people say, gosh, I realized I didn't need that afternoon Diet Coke. I didn't need that snack after dinner. So there's this kind of, you've invested this time in yourself and you realize I don't need as much as I thought I did. And that's a huge component. And I think when we do that too, a lot of times we experience some mental clarity. There's less brain fog. I think all of that is just that we kind of complicate life sometimes by throwing in all this extra food and sugar and salt and just too much volume too.
Yeah. And how addictive is that? Because I know, sugar is very addictive. A lot of these bad foods, when we sort of crave them and then we want more of it and we get stuck in that cycle. But then once you stop for long enough, you don't miss it at all. And if anything, you're kind of repulsed by it. So they're very addictive.
Yes, they are very addictive. It's interesting. Over the weekend, I had gone to a conference and I had a little bit of soda somewhere. I'm trying to remember if I was in the airport, and I don't drink soda regularly. And it kind of sounded good. I was like, oh, yeah, I'll take a sip, 2 sips. And I was totally disgusted. It was so much sweeter than I ever remember. It didn't taste like what I wanted it to be. And it was disappointing on one hand, but on the other hand, I was like, see, I didn't need that. I don't even want that anymore. So sometimes it takes kind of moving away and before you realize that you don't need it. You're
Yeah.
better off
I
without it.
I used to drink a lot of Diet Coke, and now I always have in the fridge just like fizzy water, or like flavored fizzy water. And now I look forward to drinking that. And now if I have any soft drink, I don't enjoy it anymore. I'm like, oh, I actually way prefer the fizzy water. So I found alternatives like that. And another thing I did, I've had a really bad habit where I'll eat well, but then I want to snack at nighttime, and I'd snack on chips and things like that. So now I just try and buy like some hummus and some healthy chips, flaxseed chips and things like that. So at least if you are going to do it, they've got some nutritional value rather than just eating, like you were saying, the ultra processed sort of stuff.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of things that you can make that are healthy. As you said, you were reaching for hummus and maybe some vegetables. You can take kale and roast it. The crunch, sometimes it's really about being mindful. What is it that I'm really craving right now? That I'm craving salt? Is it that I'm craving something just crunchy to munch on, something to put in my hands? Because for many of us, there's like this, it's almost like sometimes TV and food go together in our minds. It doesn't have to be that way, but I think many of us have done that. You think popcorn in a movie, but you can do simple
Yeah.
things like I love to take a can of garbanzo beans or like chickpeas, rinse them so it's inexpensive, and I'll put them on a sheet pan in the oven with just some parchment paper. Maybe I'll put some olive oil on there. You could just do a little bit of kosher salt, or if you like spicy foods, you could sprinkle some chili powder or paprika or something and just roast those at let's say 400, 425 for about 20 minutes. They get nice and crispy. And that's a much better type of snack for you than chips. It's not processed. It's just the garbanzo beans. So they have a little fiber, they have some protein, they have some carbohydrate, but it gives you that kind of maybe savory look that you were going for and some crunch too. So there's a lot
Hmm.
of different things you can do that are a healthier alternative to just your processed chips.
Yeah, I love that. What about, is popcorn okay?
Popcorn is a good choice, actually, as long as you don't get it movie style with all the butter. But 3 or 4 cups of air popped popcorn is totally fine.
Yeah,
I would
good.
recommend that too.
As long as it's not, yeah, soaked in butter and salt.
Yes, Yes. And if you were looking to add a little protein to that, or maybe even some B vitamins, I don't know if you've ever tried nutritional yeast, but
Hmm.
like a little sprinkle of that on popcorn, it kind of gives it that white cheddar flavor, but it's a really good source of protein that a lot of
Interesting.
vegetarians use. But it gives it like a little bit of that white cheddar popcorn taste too.
I'll have to give it a go.
Yeah, you'll have to try that one.
I used to be trawling through social media and I'd see, these extreme people, Liver King, for example, where, they're living off just meat, eating like
Mhm.
crazy amounts of it. People that are eating blocks of butter, saying, butter and this and that. What is there any merit in that, or what are they on about? Like, or is a lot of that dangerous?
I think it's so dangerous. It has such negative long-term effects on our health. Maybe they're not having as many carbs, and maybe they can get some weight loss out of a carnivore diet or these fad diets. But can you do that for life? Can you eat lard, so much lard for life or meat and not have all the other foods? I just don't think it's sustainable. A lot of times, our kidneys and our liver have to filter everything that we consume. There's so much meat that has to be processed, and it's just our bodies can't handle it all. We'll have complications, kidney complications, so failure, heart failure from, there's just so many different things. So our bodies really, they're so resilient, but we have to take care of them. We have to take care of them. And doing something that's so extreme is just not it's not going to induce homeostasis. It's just kind of natural normalcy for our bodies. It's not normal.
So we have some closing questions that I finish every episode with. These can be
Okay.
whatever answer comes to mind for you.
Okay.
The first one being, what's your best childhood memory that comes to mind?
Oh my goodness. I should have prepared for these, Nick. My best.
Whatever comes up for you.
This is totally random, but I think because I see my Christmas tree in front of me, it's making me think about this. It's more of a special gift that I received that was a special childhood memory. My dad used to always read to my sister and I these books, and he does fantastic voices. And as an adult, he found this book that he used to read to us a lot at Christmas. And inside had a little note that just said, "You're never too old for a bedtime story." And it was just special, a meaningful, thoughtful gift of something that I had loved for so many years that I could, now read to my own children. So that's a special childhood memory.
Love that. What do you think's currently the biggest burden on mental health in society?
Don't even know where to begin. The biggest burden on mental health. I'm going to say social media. I think that has such a negative impact. It can have a positive impact too, but I'm just thinking for so many people that kind of go on and think that's people show what they want to show. And if you think that's of somebody's everyday life, oh, they have things perfect going for them and I don't. And that kind of constant struggle with either not being enough or not having enough, I think that can have such a negative impact on our mental health.
It's horrible. How would you define happiness?
That I think that varies from person to person. To me, I think it's health. One, I think it's looking at the what matters most to you. So, but also just trying to be grateful for what you have, choosing to look at the blessings that you have and be positive can change kind of your idea of what happiness is.
Yeah,
And find happiness in yourself.
yeah. If you could give one piece of advice to your 18-year-old self, what would you say?
Trust your intuition. A lot of times we look to others for approval and even in our abilities, our confidence level. So I think trusting yourself that you're enough and you can do it. Sometimes we have to tell ourselves that and self coach ourselves. But I think that's what I would tell my 18-year-old that you're capable
Absolutely.
of yourself. Yeah.
I love that. I think it's amazing advice for all of us, any age. Ashley, thank you so much for making the time and sharing all of this information.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you again for having me. And I hope that you have a happy and healthy holiday.
And thank you for listening. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the episode and any topics you'd like to hear about. Feel free to leave a comment or send me a DM. Your feedback is always appreciated. It would mean the world to me if you can subscribe to my channel, leave a like or comment, share it with your friends. It makes a world of difference. It doesn't cost anything, and it helps me to get this show bigger and better and bring on the guests and the production value that you ask for every single week. I couldn't do it without you guys. Thank you so much.